Almost every app you use, every website you visit, it's all powered by something you never actually see: APIs. But what if the key to an app's security wasn't buried deep in some complex code, but was actually hiding in plain sight? Today, we're going to look at a critical and honestly often overlooked shield that can make or break an application's entire defense. Let's get into it. So I want to start with a question for you. What if the most dangerous weakness in a piece of software wasn't in the code itself, but in its own instruction manual? I know, it sounds a little strange, but when we're talking about APIs, this is a very, very real scenario. And that manual, we call it API documentation. Yep, that's right. Before you even think about firewalls or encryption or any of that fancy stuff, the security of your app really starts with its documentation. You've got to think of it as the foundational layer, right? It's the very first line of defense that decides how everything else is going to be built on top of it. So what exactly is API documentation? Well, the best way to think of it is as the official digital blueprint for an API. It is the guide that tells other developers and other applications exactly how to connect, how to communicate, and how to interact with it. And believe me, without a clear blueprint, things get messy, and they get insecure fast. The CSIS API Security Guide puts it perfectly. They call documentation a single source of truth. Now, that is a really powerful idea. It means creating one, and only one, official, correct, and universally understood guide for absolutely everyone involved, from the developers building the API all the way to the teams using it. Okay, so if this documentation is a security blueprint, what exactly needs to be in it to make it work? What are the absolute must-have components that turn a simple guide into a powerful shield against attacks? Well, according to security experts, it really boils down to these 4 pillars. You have to specify the endpoints, you have to define the methods, you need to detail the data models, and you got to list the parameters. If you get these 4 things right, you are building your security on a rock-solid foundation. Let's break that down just a little. Endpoints are basically the what. They tell you what functions and resources are available through the API. And methods? They're the how. They define the specific actions you're allowed to take on those resources. Getting this relationship crystal clear is absolutely fundamental. And this is where that how becomes so critical. The documentation has to spell out explicitly which HTTP methods, like get for reading data or delete for removing it, are allowed for each function. Because if you don't define those rules, you're pretty much leaving a door wide open for an attacker to try a dangerous action, like deleting data when they should only be able to read it. Now for those other 2 pillars, data models and parameters. This is where the security shield gets really tangible. Detailing exactly what kind of data is expected and what format it should be in is a direct defense against some really serious attacks. We're talking about things like injection attacks, where hackers try to feed malicious code into your system, and IDOR attacks, that's insecure direct object reference, where a user can get access to data they're not supposed to see. Being super specific here isn't just about being neat, it's a core security feature. Now, if you're thinking that keeping this blueprint perfectly updated sounds like a lot of manual work, well, you are absolutely right. People make mistakes, and outdated documentation is a huge risk. And that's exactly why the modern approach is to take human error out of the equation completely through automation. The contrast here is just night and day. A manual process is slow, it's inconsistent, and it's pretty much guaranteed to be out of date, which just creates security gaps. But an automated approach, it generates the documentation directly from the code itself. This makes sure that the blueprint is always a perfect, up-to-the-minute reflection of the live API. This kind of automation is all powered by structured, machine-readable formats. Standards like OpenAPI, RAML, and API Blueprint allow tools to automatically read, validate, and then update the documentation anytime the code changes. This is what transforms that blueprint from just some static file into a living, breathing document. So all of these pieces, the detailed blueprint and the automation, it all leads us to our final and maybe most important principle. This is really the core idea that ties everything together, creating one source to rule them all. The problem is really simple. When you have multiple versions of the truth, a doc over here, a wiki page there, some developer's outdated notes somewhere else, you just get chaos. Inconsistencies and miscommunication create security gaps that are just waiting to be exploited. And the solution is just as simple, at least in concept. 1. one single, unified, comprehensive document that every single person refers to. This eliminates all the confusion and makes sure that every single person, from security to development to operations, is working from the exact same blueprint. But of course, a single source of truth is only useful if everyone knows when it's been updated, right? That's why any changes to this core document should automatically trigger notifications to all the relevant teams. This is what keeps the entire organization in perfect sync. So let's just do a quick recap of what we've talked about. First, good documentation isn't just helpful, it is good security. Second, consistency in that documentation is what stops critical errors and vulnerabilities in their tracks. Third, automation is the key to keeping everything accurate and efficient. And finally, all of this has to feed into a single source of truth that gets rid of confusion and gets everyone on the same page. So I'll leave you with this final thought. When it comes to your APIs and the data they're supposed to protect, are you building a fortress based on a clear, accurate, and unified blueprint? Or are you just kinda hoping for the best with a plan that's full of holes? The answer to that could make all the difference. Thanks for tuning in.